We've reached the end of 2025. Can you believe it? And maybe things in your business feel just a little bit off. Maybe you're feeling a little bit like the Weebles, dating myself here, and like you might fall down. You're wobbling back and forth. Today on the Opt-in podcast, I am going to be speaking to you about this uncertainty that we're all feeling in business right now. Frankly, we're feeling just in our lives, and what you can do in 2026 to bring a little bit of certainty and clarity back into your approach so that you are in control of what goes on in your business instead of waiting to see what the market is going to do. I'm Melissa Franks, your host, and this is where we talk every week about going from surviving to thriving in business. Now, the wobbly economy is a real and true thing, and when I say wobbly, I really want you to think a little bit about that kitchen table leg that never quite stays where it's supposed to, and you touch the table and it shakes a little bit. Table doesn't fall down. You're not having a catastrophe in the middle of your kitchen, but something is just off, and you're sticking a book underneath it to get it straight, or a few pieces of paper, and nothing is quite right. That's what's happening in the economy right now. And there's good reason for that. Let's think about what 2025 has brought to the table with us, so to speak. New president, we have a new administration, radically different approaches to business. This administration has really gone forward and said the goal is to have all manufacturing and all products and everything here in the United States. And in order to do that, we're going to prevent things happening outside of the country. And well, prior to that, we operated in a global economy, which meant that there were really translucent borders and things were easy to do. Tariffs went up. The cost of doing business went up, and panic ensued. And so while that became a huge situation in the first and second quarter and then seemed to die down and not be a problem anymore, there are other things that play inside of the market that we're going to talk about today that may be impacting your business. So if you have come to the end of the year, and your business just feels a little bit off, you're not alone. And if you're now looking, and we've been talking about this a lot on this podcast week after week, at your 2026, what your plan is going to look like, how you're going to approach that, it might be feeling harder than normal to come up with a realistic plan. It might be harder than normal to set goals that you believe you can achieve. It might be harder than normal to just have clarity around what you believe the business landscape is going to look like in 2026. And that is driven by a few things. Inflation just won't budge. It's significantly stickier than we have seen in the past. There is shifts in demand. It's getting really difficult to predict who wants what, when, and how, and labor costs are on the rise. If you have looked at anything across the US landscape recently, it's that there is a pressure, a boiling point around cost of living, and it's this tension of we need to increase the living wage so that we can address the increasing cost of living. Well, what happens to you as a small business owner is you're most dramatically impacted. We're going to talk in a little bit about why these large enterprises are relatively insulated and why you are feeling all of the pain points. But you've got to think that as inflation goes up and as demand shifts and as labor costs get greater, it is more expensive for you to be in business, and it's more expensive for the consumers to buy whatever it is that you're selling. And that makes for a shrinking economy over time. This is not going to be a conversation where I'm going to get you totally scared as you approach 2026, but I want to lay the groundwork that what you are feeling is real. What's happening inside of your business, the apprehension that you have, it's grounded in real facts and data about what's happening out there in the greater economy. You are feeling this more acutely because you have less insulation. If you think about it, homes that are built in the Midwest or the Northeast are built dramatically different than oceanfront property. Why? Well, that's because those in the colder climates, they need more insulation. They need the ability to keep heat inside. They're fueled differently. They're structured in a different way to wear and maintain themselves during inclement climates. And That's what's happening right now with small business. You're a little bit like that beachfront home that all of a sudden has snow, and you're like, I'm not prepared for this. I don't have the appropriate insulation. I don't have the appropriate windows. I don't have a snowblower. You're not equipped to deal with what's happening in the marketplace because you are a small business and you are not insulated by fluctuations. So what you are feeling right now is absolutely more acute than Target or Walmart or those big B2B companies. And that's okay, because we're going to talk about what you do about it. So the first thing that I really want to hit on is it's not just you. So we kind of hit this in the beginning in the intro about what was going on, but it's not just you. Here is the reality. Costs are still high. The cost to purchase groceries, the cost to purchase fuel, the cost to purchase an airline ticket, costs are still high. They just are. And what that means is that the longer that costs remain at an elevated level, the more demand softens. What that looks like is that consumers are saying, it is a long-term situation that is going to cost me more money than it used to feed my family, and my income hasn't adjusted. So that means I'm going to be a little more careful about how I spend my money and where I spend it. That's when demand softens. Eventually, softening demand turns to contracted demand, but we're not there yet. Consumers are just being more cautious. They're taking longer to make a buying decision. They're really evaluating their options. They are pausing and hesitating before they jump into those holiday sales because they want to make sure that they really need to buy whatever it is that they're buying and they're getting the very best deal. Now, this hits you harder as a small business owner than it does large enterprises. And the reason for that is large enterprises plan for economic downturns. This is something that they do not talk about. One of the reasons that they take all of their profit and primarily invest it where the money will continue to make money without them doing anything is to insulate themselves from demand softening. So what that looks like inside of real businesses is, let's say that they make $100 million in profit for a year. 90 million of that profit is invested. They purchase stocks and bonds. They put it into high yield accounts. They purchase real estate. They're using it to better their asset position. So when the market softens, they can pull on those reserves and steady the waters. Small businesses don't do this. They don't do this for a couple of reasons. One, they don't have the capacity and the profit margin to be able to do this at scale in order to protect their business. And two, they don't know how. This is the classic case of the big enterprises, just like the billionaires in the world, know how to do things that the average person does not. And this is exactly what this is. The other part that's happening is that big enterprises do not pay attention to headlines. They make headlines, but they don't pay attention to them. We in the small business space stress over them. And we're in social media and we're looking at all of these things and trying to figure out what it's going to mean for our business. And that in turn feels chaotic. So you may be reading and hearing there's a moderate slowdown, but you're looking at every single indicator in your business and saying, it is on a crash course. We are on a collision course. Like, this is not going to end well. I don't care what you say about moderate. It is an issue. It is an emergency here. And partially that's because you're lacking the insulation, and partially it's your perception. And that's why we have to get out of the feelings about what's happening in our business. And we have to get into the data. So you're at the end of the year. There's not a lot that you can do for 2025. I hope you're having an amazing holiday season. I hope that all of the milestones and markers are being hit. And now we are talking about planning for 2026. When times are uncertain, it is really easy to make mistakes when we're planning. If you are approaching planning in the same way that you have approached planning before, you're doing it wrong. I'm just going to be really clear. You're doing it wrong. When economic uncertainty is present, when there is a wobbly economy, which is kind of how we opened, you have to approach planning differently. It requires a different framework, it requires a different frame of reference. It requires you to think differently. So here are some mistakes that are made when building plans in uncertain times. The first one is that you try to cut your way to growth. We have talked about this before. We have talked about this with big businesses. When they get into trouble, they start slashing their workforce. They start laying people off en masse. Never have I ever been inside of a multi-billion-dollar business and seen the business turn around when they do large-scale workforce reductions. I'm just never have I ever, and I have been in many, and I have broken them apart, and I have put them back together. And this never works. It never works. In addition, before you get to the mass layoffs, what the corporations do is they start cutting costs. And often this comes in the way of, we have an operating margin we have to hit, and it is way off. And so what they do is they pull a benchmark, and for our industry, our operating margin has to be at 26.5, and right now it's at 40. We have to cut 15% of the operating margin. And that's when people start pulling costs out of the woodwork. They're like, I'm just going to cancel the subscription, and we're just not going to print that report anymore. And you're never, ever, ever going to cut your way to growth. All of those activities are a contracting action. They come from a scarcity mindset, and they will shrink your business over time. Don't make that mistake. The second mistake that is made is that one singular plan is made. And that should not occur. You should not have one singular plan when times are uncertain. What you should have is a scenario-based plan or plans that you can pull from based on what you are seeing and experiencing and is happening. The third mistake is freezing, hiring, and crushing your existing team. If you need to hire, you need to hire. In the small business space, every person you add to your team enables further growth in your business. And the reason that you are hiring is not because you're flush with money and you just want a big team and you want to be able to be boastful. The reason that you're hiring is because your capacity is tapped out. It's either yours as the owner or it's the team's. You are hiring because it's critical to the future of the business to have the role. This is very, very different than large corporations. Very, very different. They can play this game with freezing hiring all of the time because there's redundancy in roles. And there are people with spare capacity laying around. It's always true. In small business, that's not the case. So you are not going to help your business by freezing hiring. In fact, what you're going to do is you're going to put additional stress on your team, which may lead to them walking away and you having to backfill their roles, which further shrinks your business. And then the fourth mistake is avoiding making pricing decisions and then making those pricing decisions too late. And those pricing decisions can be anything, but one of the things that you should always be looking at in planning, especially if you're following my suggestion, which will come next about creating scenario-based planning, is that you should also be looking at your pricing and determine based on what's happening, what you should be doing differently with pricing. Please know, this is not me making a recommendation that you start reducing your prices or discounting things. In fact, I feel very strongly that price reductions and discounts can be used very smartly and strategically, but very rarely. So let's be very, very careful with this one. So now, as I promised, we're going to talk about a new framework that I am going to give you. Now, we have talked about the growth formula framework in broad strokes. Some of you may have even attended the master classes that we've held in the past with the growth formula framework. We're in a wobbly economy, which means that we need to use the Wobbly Economy Planning Framework. Yeah, it's not a good name. We're making it up as we go. But this is a plan that I have used many a time in large corporate settings. This is a framework that we have been using with our existing clients now, and it's something that will help you enter 2026 with confidence if you execute it with intention. So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to create 3 plans, not 1, 3. And the first plan you're going to create is best case. Best case scenario is these are our goals, this is when we achieve them, these are the results that we get. Best case scenario. That's your impossible goal scenario. That's your aspirational scenario. That is, everything is working in my favor and I'm on a growth trajectory scenario. The second plan that you build is the likely plan. And this one is the one where we talk about the growth formula framework. This is the one where we use all of the historical information. We look at what's happening now. We project what we believe we'll be able to do in the future. Growth formula framework lives really, really well in the middle, in the likely scenario. This is where you take everything that you know, and based on all the things that I'm seeing and based on all the things that I know, this is what I expect to happen. And then the third is worst case. And this is where we do a little doomsday. And I'm inviting you now to do a little doomsday. Just don't wallow. But you're going to say, so what's the worst thing that can happen? Maybe it's that sales shrink by 50%. I don't know. Figure it out. What's the worst thing that can happen? And then build a plan around that. So if the worst thing happens, if our sales shrink by 50%, then what's the plan? What do we do? Do we go back to some of the things that we used to do? Do we try new things? Do we try new things and keep doing the things that we know are working? What are we going to do in the worst case scenario? Now, once you have built kind of this best, likely, and worst, so you have 3 scenario plans, the next thing that you want to do is, as you approach these plans, you really want to start looking at your business as if it's a portfolio. This is how we de-risk our businesses in general. It's if you have all of your eggs in one basket, this is a way to put the eggs in multiple baskets, sort of a situation. So what you want to take a look at is your offers. What are you selling? What makes you the money? What's your tried and true core business model and offers? What are those? And then, as we were just talking about, where you try something new potentially in the worst case scenario, look at what's experimental. What are you currently testing? What are you considering launching, producing, developing, etc.? What had you done historically but you haven't done in a long time? What are those things that you want to experiment with? What does that look like? And then you want to come up with a list of what are we going to no longer offer? And that can kind of come in a couple of different ways. The no longer offer is you get kind of that last minute, gone forever, never going to be here again, buy it now before you lose it kind of energy. It could be that you have something that's not profitable and it's just time to make that one go away so you can put more energy into the profitable things. Whatever it is, you want to look at your offers as a portfolio. And you should always be evaluating them and say, this is what we do, this is our core, this is how it functions, this is what it looks like. Here's the things that we are adding or removing or changing, or experimenting with, playing around, and then these are the things that we're going to make go away. One of our clients has done an exceptional job this year of going from a core offer only strategy to one that has all 3 of these components. And what that looks like is every time she as a sales event, we have this conversation. What are we selling that we're never ever changing? We know what that is. What new thing that we want to introduce and we want to see how it goes? Is there demand? Is the pricing right? Is the components of the offer good? And then what are things we're not going to sell anymore? And we do that every single time. So for her, we're having this conversation 6 to 9 months out of the year because it's so important that you continually look with a critical eye at what's working and not working in your offer stack so that you can make adjustments and continue to be as profitable as possible. Now, another part of the Wobbly Economy Planning Framework is for you to develop an expense strategy. And this is what you need to protect versus what you need to cut. So you need to go in and look at all of your expenses. You need to be very, very clear on how all of the cash is going out of the business. And then you need to say, what do I absolutely have to keep spending? And what could I potentially cut? What is discretionary? If my business contracts, what can I let go of? When you have the ability to segment your expenses in those ways, you then have a lot of clarity around what your best, likely, and worst is. Because now you know worst case still needs to pay these fundamental operating costs, right? And so don't shy away from where your money is going. Pay attention to it, understand it, and ensure that you can always cover those basic operating costs. But develop an expense strategy so that if something happens, if your business contracts a little bit, you know ahead of time what you're going to cut. You're not emotional about it. You're just executing the plan. Now, The next thing that I want to encourage all of you to do, and I encourage you to do this with the financial professionals in your business. I don't know your business. I'm not going to provide you exact calculations. I'm not going to provide you exact frameworks. I'm not going to provide you guidance on this because I am not a finance professional. But what I want to tell you is that you need to ensure that you have cash and margin guardrails in place. So one of the tactics that many a time a financial expert inside of all of the businesses that I have worked in has encouraged is having multiple bank accounts. One of the bank accounts just covers operating expense, and the other bank account has all of the rest of the money. In some cases, it's you have your operating expense bank account, you have your tax bank account, and then you have all other. You do you, boo, with your professionals. What I will say is that you need to ensure two things. One, you actually know what your net and gross profit margin is in your business. And it is at the level that you expect. Generally speaking, the lowest your net profit margin should be, I take that back. Generally speaking, the lowest your gross profit margin should be is 30%. You should really be striving to get it to the 50. And I'm not going to talk to you about how you calculate that and what your income has to do with that and all the things. But you need to know with your financial professionals, what is our gross profit margin? What is our net profit margin? And is it where we want it to be? Number one. The second is, what do we do with our cash? What do we do with it? And again, finance professionals, but you have to have a plan for your cash and your margins. You have to have a plan, you have to look at them, and you have to understand what's going on. And then the last thing that you need in your planning framework is, what data are we going to measure and look at? What are our performance metrics? What are our financial metrics? How often are we going to look at them? Who's going to be responsible for them? What are they telling us, and what decisions do we need to make? You cannot build a plan without understanding how you're going to measure the plan, and how you're going to evaluate the plan, and how you're going to be able to make decisions within the plan. So ensure that you are very, very clear on what data you're going to use, what reporting, KPIs, metrics, etc. you're going to be looking at in order to steer your business and make decisions. Okay? That, in a nutshell, is the Wobbly Economy Planning Framework. Now, if I have lost you here because I went fast in this, the good news is we can help you with this. All you have to do is go to melissafranks.com, book a free consultation call, say, I need help with the Wobbly Economy Planning Framework. We will help you. So I just want to say, you're not alone in this if you need help. And the reason that I made that call out now is because your role as the leader in the business is really, really critical right now. It's critical all of the time, but it's critical in times where there's uncertainty because your employees and your clients are looking to you for cues. They want clarity from you. They want to understand where they're headed. They want to understand, to a certain extent, also like what you're considering, that you acknowledge and understand that there are some things underway and underfoot that could potentially impact the business, and that you have a plan to address it. They're seeking clarity from you. They don't want certainty. They know that you can't promise that. They know that you cannot promise that your business is going to double next year. What they do hope that you can provide to them is a clear path for them to follow, and alternative paths if things don't go the way that was expected. Your energy will determine their energy. Your vibe, your aura, your demeanor, your confidence will directly impact the people working for you and the people buying from you. If you are constantly worried, they're going to be constantly worried. If you are optimistic, they will be optimistic. It is really important right now for you to ground and center yourself and say, what do I need them to embody? And then you need to embody it yourself first. The silent thing about business ownership is that there is always stress. There's always uncertainty. There's always something to panic about. Always. There's also always a next right step. And so if you can ground yourself on taking the next right step, you can encourage your team to do the same as well. Recently, there was a business that we were working with that was experiencing a period of contraction, and there was a variety of reasons for this. And what was happening is that the owner was getting really wound up. And then what we were watching almost simultaneously is the team was getting really wound up. And what we ended up doing is we coached the owner, because because then the owner was getting frustrated, the team was getting wound up. It was like this whole like situation. So the more the owner got wound up, the more the team got wound up, the more the team got wound up, the more the owner got wound up, and it was like literally the perfect storm. And so what we had to do was go back to the owner and we had to say, so you are setting the temperature in the room. You're raising everybody's blood pressure. You are the weather and they don't have umbrellas. You need to get a hold of yourself. You need to pull it together. If you want them joyful and optimistic, you need to be joyful and optimistic. It is just a reality. And your role matters right now more than when things are good. When things are good and the business is growing and it's booming, that energy picks up on itself. When things are uncertain, it's on you to get everybody's head in the game. And the third thing that you're responsible for is communicating the plan without creating panic. So my recommendation is that you need to take whatever your team is telling you with a grain of salt. They always want to know everything. Everything. When I was in corporate, we inadvertently ran an experiment. We had, at that point in time, I think I had probably gone through, 25 to 50 workforce reductions in my career, and we were facing another one. And the employee base was screaming and yelling at us, literally, tell us, be transparent. You said that you would tell us exactly what's going on. So you know what we did? We told them, we're going to be laying people off. That was the dumbest decision that we ever made. A good experiment, we now know. It was so dumb. They didn't mean it. They didn't want to know. What they wanted us to do was come back and tell them we weren't. And so what happened is we told them we were. And then it took us 6 months to figure out who. And in that 6-month time, we had people leaving that we had wanted to keep. We had people becoming highly unproductive that had been very productive. We had disgruntled employees. We had tons of HR complaints. It was a dumpster fire of people management. All because we had told them that somebody's job was going to be at risk at some point in the future. That never happened with any of the other workforce reductions. Did we get feedback later we wish we had known? Yes, but they were the ones that were still here. So of course they wish they'd known because they were gossip mongers. So what I'm saying to you is communicate the plan without causing panic. So what you want to do, likely, is give them the likely plan that you built. Remember, we had best, likely, and worst. So what you want to do is you want to present to them, this is our plan. This is likely what's going to happen. And here's how we're going to move along. Keep the best plan to yourself. Keep the big goals to yourself. Give them what they can manage, what they can rally around, what they can get excited about, and you keep that worst case scenario in your back pocket. Nobody needs to know but you. Okay, that was a lot. I know, but a wobbly economy is a lot. And this means that you need to be nimble. This means that you need to develop new skills. This means that you need to be the confident captain of the ship. So whether you're listening to this in December or 6 months from now, the planning process does not change. And if you are stuck, you do not need more information. You need a partner to turn your goals into an actionable plan. That's what my team does every day. If you are stuck right now, book a call with us. melissafranks.com, book a free consultation call. We will help you figure out how to move the needle forward. This piece, this planning piece, especially planning in a wobbly economy, is too important for you to just skip. If you need help, ask for it. That's what we're here for. I know that whatever happens in 2026, you're going to have an amazing experience and will experience growth if you put the right intentionality behind your plan. Until we speak next time, please know you are wise, you are strong, and you are capable, and I believe in you.